Greetings, comic book friends. It has been a little while since I did a pressing how-to video, and I got a good opportunity to do this. I don't do these very often just because they don't come in very often. I don't have a problem. I've done a number of them, but I just kind of had to wait for the right example to come in to do this, and this probably looks okay from the front, but from the back, you can see these interior pages along the side, right? So what we're gonna do, show you there. So what we're gonna do is readjust the spine so that it's in the right place. You can also see from the front. You can see the staples are a little bit more interior than what they usually. They're not right on the spine. So this is what's referred to as a bit of a spine roll. It's been stored in such a way that the front of the cover has migrated to my right. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'll probably invert this. But anyway, the spine is not where it should be. The crease is not where it should be, which has made the spine over here out of line. So what we're going to do today is adjust it back to where it is supposed to be. That is right where the staples are. Now I'll say a couple of things before attempting to do this. The book has to be the right candidate for it. The procedure of doing this puts quite a bit of stress, not a lot, but it does put some stress on the spine. So if the book is very fragile, if the staples are close to coming out, there's a lot of tears around the staple, it might not be a good candidate. You have to make sure that, given you're going to put some stress on it, it's going to come out the other side okay. So it's not for everything. If the book is just starting to fall apart, if the staples aren't connected, then you might end up doing more damage than you can even possibly do good. This is a book that belongs to a customer. I noticed when I was doing the intake, I noticed that issue. So I went ahead and let them know about it, and we can try to adjust the spine, and they agreed to that. So that's what we're gonna do. Trying to think what else we want to talk about. So you may notice this is a little. I've cleaned it already. You always do your cleaning before you do your pressing, and then after we do what we do here, we're gonna press it as normal. So it's already been cleaned. And you also may notice it's a little bit. It might seem a little bit puffy. That's because before I started recording this sat in a humidity chamber. So it's soaked up a bit of humidity, and that's just to make it a little more malleable. In this case, I think I put it in the humidity chamber for 6 hours with 4 cups of water. It's just the timing that worked out for when I was going to be able to have time to work on this. So it will make things a little more malleable, a little bit easier for us to do. But the first thing we need to do, the book sits like this naturally because the crease has moved over here, which actually it looks to be where the crease is supposed to be, but the cover is probably cut a little bit off. The black line is right there, so it's going to look a little weird. But this isn't rare for some of your Silver Age books, that the crease is going to kind of cut off the image right here. It's going to fold it back down a little bit, and again it's not a rare occurrence with Silver Age books. It's just that the cover wasn't cut exactly right. The cover itself, the way it was cut, is a little bit off center. So we'll see the crease come where the staple is. Like you can see right here, the staple is not lined up with the side of the image. But it's more important to have the spine correct than it is to have this lined up with where the spine is. So the first thing that we need to do is get rid of the current spine, the current crease, and we will do that by going to the centerfold. So here we see the crease. So this is a little weird. So the staples actually line up with it in the interior, but on the exterior it's not. So that is a bit interesting. So some of the interior pages might have retained the original spine, but it's just the exterior cover that has a different crease. But either way, we need to flatten this out as best as we can, so we can reintroduce a new crease. So what we are going to do is iron this out. There's a number of ways you can do this. Some you can just put it in the press and press it out. I'm going to iron it out, like literally iron it out. Either way is fine. And in this case, since I had it sitting in the humidity chamber, ironing it out is going to be enough. It doesn't need to sit in the press for hours upon hours upon hours to get it out enough to readjust it. Now, obviously, we're going to readjust it, and then we're going to put it in and actually press it to reinforce the new spine that we've given it. So here, this is just a normal iron. I have it on its highest setting, which is getting to, it says 125 degrees, which is fine. When you press a Silver Age book, you normally put it in for around 160. So it's 125. Sounds like a lot, but it's all right. So I'm going to make sure I never put anything directly to the paper. So I have my silicone paper here, where I'm just going to iron out the spine, just try to flatten it as much as I can. And the reason for this is so when I give it the new spine, it doesn't fight me. It doesn't just try to come back into its current crease. So just spend a little time ironing this out. I am putting some pressure on it, not tons of pressure, but I am putting some pressure. Don't worry about that cracking sound. That's actually the mat itself is heating up, and it warps a little bit when it gets hot. So that's the sound is the mat. It's not anything going on with the book itself. Here I'm gonna flip this upside down because the pressure I put is more on the back, so I want to make sure the top gets some good pressure too. Cracking is it bubbles up the mat because the plastic, like, it loosens up the glue or something, but it comes after a time, after it cools off, it goes back down to where it's supposed to be. So let's see where we're at here. So I'm not looking for, you can still see the line, right? And I'm not looking for that to be completely gone, because I'm going to press it normally. I just want it to be weaker so it doesn't fight me when I introduce the new crease. So this is probably good. Again, before I told the customer that, yeah, we can try to adjust the spine, I opened it up, I looked at it, I felt it was a fairly good candidate without a whole lot of risk. So don't just try this on anything that has a bad spine. So this is gonna be kind of hard, because normally, let's see if I can or actually maybe it'll be easier if the interior pages are already aligned. I just need to force that exterior. So here I have a backing board, like an actual backing board. Just something that has a little bit of stiffness to it. So I put that where I want the spine to be, which in this case is the center, but we're going to force it on the outside. Yeah, when I fold that over, see, now the staple is on the side. It's on the side where it's supposed to be, right? So that's where I want it to be. Now, I want to crease it. And just by using the iron, putting pressure on the new place that I want the spine, having had this in the humidity chamber, made this a lot easier. It's a lot more malleable. I guess I'd say the paper is a lot more suggestive to putting putting a new crease in there, or at least to bending it around the board like I did. And the flattening out of the previous one makes it so that previous crease doesn't fight me. It doesn't try to naturally go back there as much. So I can put that board in. I fold it the way that I want it to be folded. And then I just at least make this new fold stronger than the fold that I ironed out, so that this is the dominant way it wants to sit. Now this alone isn't enough. Again, it gets it to the point where I can set it into the press, so it will sit the way I want it to sit. But once in the press, it will do the final bit of work to fully adjust that. So that looks pretty close. Sometimes it does take a couple of passes. I'm going to take this out. Yeah, that's interesting. So that is closer, but it looks like we want it over a little bit more. And this is usually something that has to be done. It might have to be done a couple of times to make sure you have it in the right spot. And this one is kind of strange in that it looks perfect here, but the exterior is disagreeing. So what we're probably going to do is put it a little bit more to the left of the book, right? Because I put it left of the book, then this comes back. Yeah. So, and it can be a little bit of trial and error process. You might do it where, you know, because it all kind of depends upon how the book is cut. Again, with these Silver Age books, it's a little bit easier when you get into Bronze Age because the quality control is a little bit better. But with these Silver Age books, the quality control wasn't as good, so the cover can be a little crooked. The staples might be a little bit misaligned. So sometimes things are off a little bit. So you just kind of have to try it. How does it look? And if it doesn't look how you want it to look, then you just redo it and adjust it. It's not uncommon to have to do that. With Silver Age books, it's very rarely have I been lucky enough to get it on the first try. Just because it's a lot of eyeballing work, right? It's like, it looks like it should go here. No, all right. And again, just another reason to make sure that the book that you're doing this on can take the stress, because you might have to do it multiple times. the hope is every time you do it, you get a little bit closer, and then once you're there, you press it, and then you're done. But keep in mind that it really has to be a good candidate, because you may have to put this stress on it more than once. All right, so we're gonna, where'd my, that's a bad place for that. So we're going to move this over slightly, just slightly over here. This might not be flat enough. At some point you might have to get heavy-handed with it, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do instead, instead of doing it that way, I'm going to do it this way, where I can put more force on it. Like, this is doing it this way. It's probably good this came up, because this is another technique of doing it. If you can't see what I'm doing here, I'm putting this right where I want it, and instead of just folding it over the top like I was before, I'm because it was falling into that that previous crease too easily. So here I'm definitely kind of forcing it more, where I'm putting the board where I want it to be, so I can press the board against it, against the back pages. And it really likes that previous. Really wants to fall back into it. This is where I want it. Force it there. Force it there. It back here just to get a better angle. I didn't want to move it. It was sitting sideways, and I didn't want to move it too much, so it didn't adjust. So I wanted to iron it that way a little bit, just to get it to stay, so I could rotate it this way, where I can definitely get a bit of a better angle on it, better pressure on it. All right. Let's see how we're doing. And we're seeing, you see how you can tell because the M is cut off there, that we've shifted it over a bit more, which again is not completely uncommon. That's That's on the side, that's on the side. Yeah, that's quite a bit better. Than what it was. Some of this let's see. Let me get this back in here. In the center here. Try to adjust this over here. Just this over here. And now what I'm doing, just so I'm tweaking it just a little bit, I've put the board in there because it's close, right? It's still just a little bit off. I don't want to redo the entire thing because then I'm probably just going to be just a little bit off again. And here, again, you have to make sure that the book is strong enough to take this because it puts stress. So I'm putting the board back in the center, and in this case, I need to go this way, so I'm kind of pulling the pages and the cover to where I want it to be, so it's kind of like wrapping around, being thread through. I'm not sure the best word for that. The board, which again, it's putting stress on it. So be careful with it. Also, having put it in the humidity chamber helped a lot. Now try to reinforce this here. Here I really want to make sure this is where I want it to be, right? The other times that I was just getting it closer. Here I'm doing the fine tuning. So here I really want to make sure that I put enough pressure on here to absolutely enforce this. And once I do this, I have, like, the press is ready to go. I'm going to put it into the press immediately, so it doesn't get a chance to regress back to any previous creases. In this case, I'm going to put it in just as it is. I don't want to. Normally, when I press, I'll put a backer, not a backer board, but I'll put some reinforcement here. That helps make it. That will help to make the cover flatter, but that's not my concern right now. My concern right now is making sure that this becomes the new spine. So I'll put it in just like it is here to reinforce the spine, and then I'll give it a full press where I'll have the reinforcement under the cover to make sure that it goes it gets flatter. But the primary thing right now is I want this to be the spine. So I don't want to be like lifting up the pages and putting other things in there, because this is temporary. As of right now, it's temporary. If I were to just let this sit as is, it will probably not stay. But if I get it in the press right away and press to reinforce that new spine, then it's more likely to stay. So I'm gonna do that now. Put it in the press, and I'll add some after pictures on this. If I don't come back with video, I'll at least have some after pictures, but we'll see. And hopefully it turns out and we don't have to do it again. Because even the worry is, and I keep talking, so I have to keep reinforcing this so I don't lose any time. The worry is that on my way, my press is just like 2 feet away, right? But the worry is on the way from there to there, by moving it around, it kind of shifts back towards its old spine. So it's possible that I could press this, but by the time I get it from here to in the press, it's shifted a little bit. So I would then have pressed it and reinforced the incorrect spine. So you might have to go through it again. It's not a process that's easy to do, but it's very rewarding when it works out. But again, I cannot stress enough, don't just do this on any old book. You have to be comfortable with it. You have to be sure that the book is strong enough to take it. Obviously, get tester books. Do this a bunch on tester books before you do it on anything that's actually real or valuable. But I'm going to throw this in, and we'll come back and see how it turned out. All right, we have our book out of the press after doing some work to readjust that spine, and it's looking a lot better. It looks a little bit odd, and we'll go over why. So if you remember previously, which you do because this is a time jump for me, but it's not a time jump for you, we could see quite a bit of the interior pages on the back here, and we see them a little bit still here. Let's see. Okay, so very, very slightly, I don't even know if the camera's going to pick it up, very, very slightly they're there, but we also see it here in the front. So that seems weird, right? When you see interior pages peeking out, it's usually on one side or the other because of a roll. So what does it mean when it's peeking out on both sides? Well, there's a couple of things. So I looked at it in a couple of different ways. The easiest thing to guess is that the pages are cut weird, right? If the interior pages, if you lay this flat, and the interior pages are cut wrong so that they're longer than what the cover is, then yeah, they peek out on both sides fairly evenly, which is a possibility. You know, with the standards they had, there's miscuts and all kinds of weird stuff that happened back in these days. So that was my first guess, but I opened it up. I measured the cover length and the interior page length, and they were the same. Right. So if all the pages are the same length, how can they be peeking out on both sides, right? Because if the interior pages are longer, right, you think of like if this is the pages flat here to here, this is them folded over, for them to be peeking out on both sides, if this was the cover, I don't know how I can do this, if the cover was wrapping around it and it was shorter, this probably doesn't make any sense, then they'd be peeking out on both sides. But that's not the case. So the only other thing would be that so this is now the cover, front cover, back cover, spine. If they're the same length, that this is the interior pages, that the entire of the interior pages is actually somehow slid forward. So there is no good way to show this with my hands, unfortunately. Let's see. Let's use this because it's soft. All right. So interior pages, cover, same length. Um, the middle's right next to each other. If the interior pages are split out a little bit, then we see them picking out on both sides. So looking at this, and I'm not sure how well this is going to show up. Yeah, geez, I can barely even see it. But it's so slight. So the reason, and actually kind of glad this has happened because it gives some additional talking points here. It looks like the staples are a bit sunken, where that's the case, right? Where you have the interior pages, cover supposed to be here, same length. They're all connected with the staple, but if the staple on the cover is pushed in or sunken in, so that the staple is basically more interior than the cover itself, then those pages would be pushed out a little bit. So we have a case where the staples are sunken a bit. This can happen, mainly this can happen with pressure. So what I did is I went back. I'm actually glad that I recorded this. So I went back and looked to make sure that before I did anything with this book, were the staples already sunken? And yes, they were. And if you're watching this video, you can go back and look. It might be kind of hard to see on the video. It's definitely harder to see on the one that's further away from the camera. But it's easier to see the one that's towards the top of the book, that it's sunken a little bit. And that is due to pressure. In this case, it doesn't take as much pressure as a press would take because of where the staple was, right? The staple was essentially right here, right? The spine was the spine, and the staple is to the right of where the spine actually was. So when the book was stored somewhere for who knows how many years, it had pressure on it by being packed in a box or stuff sat on top of it or whatever the case would be. And after that long-term storage, the staple became sunk, and it's still sunk. So that's why we're seeing the pages peek out a little bit on both sides, which is, I mean, it's too bad. There's not really a lot that can be done with that without doing some restoration type stuff, which I don't do. But as far as the spine adjustment goes, I think it's about as good as I can get. Things seem pretty even. This looks even over here. If you follow this line, there's about much to the left of the line up here as there is to the left there. So that it's evenly pressed down the center, which is good. But it's definitely a lot better. It would look better if it didn't have the sunken staples, but it's a 60-some-year-old book, or almost 60-year-old book or so. Those sorts of things happen in that sort of long-term storage when these weren't kind of stored properly. But that's it. Let me know your thoughts on this. Is this something that you've done or something that you would like to attempt to do? Again, if you do, keep in mind you want to do a lot of practice books first before doing something for real. And there is some trial and error involved to it, as we saw earlier. Didn't quite like where it lined up after I had pressed out the original spine and kind of moved it around. So had to do it at least one more time. I can't remember. It was a little while ago. But that's to be expected since you are kind of like eyeballing it a little bit. But yeah, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this. This gave you a little insight in some of the techniques that we do when pressing comics. So that is it. Thank you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that. And of course, don't forget to make yours Titan. This video was brought to you by Titan Comic Pressing. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Titan Comic Pressing LLC.